I call this is more daylight. So we'll call this blue, that's orange, right? So the problem is when you have one or the other and you're like, man, that overhead light, like right here on Adam's face, is really orange. So in post you would go, well, I'm going to crank up the blue because that cancels out orange. The problem is if you add blue to blue, what happens? Real blue. So all of a sudden, now all of a sudden, this is turning blue and your ceiling's turning blue because you're turning up the blue to get rid of the orange from the tungsten. Versus if it's all orange, meaning orange is just being thrown everywhere, then you can color correct the scene as a whole.
So you want one full color,
ideally. Because then now you can either have all daylight where it would be like this, and then let's say it comes off a little too cool. And this is great. You know why? You can use this as your color corrector, meaning if you ever do get into video editing, especially in Photoshop, there's an eyedropper tool that just says, it'll say select neutral. Click. And it'll make that, because right now this is like blue. Okay. It's like blue-white. It'll turn it back to neutral white, which will add more warmth to our skin.
Nice.
Because it'll correct the scene.
So you're going to send me some links on how to learn all this shit?
Dude, Jesus. Oh, you can YouTube that. That's easy little 10-minute YouTube video.
Damn.
You can just...
So, but I don't have to get rid of these lights. I can hold on to these lights.
You could either color correct them, like I said, buy some of those plastic orange. And what you do, it's so cheap when you see people color correcting things. Like, they literally just kind of crank the plastic over it, and then they, like, rubber band it. As long as it's covering that bulb, it'll now change the color to match your overhead. Or vice versa. You stick a blue gel on that, and it mellows that out into daylight.
So it's just basically choosing a color.
You just pick which one. Right now, you're mixing two, so you just pick which one. Like, in my opinion, I would probably do... Like, daylight is really, really good for photos. I feel like that would be a bitch. You would be taping blue gel to your ceilings. I would just honestly get a CTO gel for each of those, and that's super cheap.
And then just kind of same place, just put them over and that's it.
Yeah.
And then in editing, you just do everything you just
Yep. And then you know what else next? Eventually down the road? Like,
yeah, talk to me.
Get some sort of uplighting. Just something to add a little flare back here so it's not
like
so
a light
flat.
In the actual shot then.
No, just literally like a can light pointing up this curtain. So like it would go like, and it would just add like a flare of light.
Sick. Yeah. Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
So that's what I'm saying. Idea. You just add something so this doesn't look so like one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Make sure we're lit properly. Ideally, this is good for now. Like, trust me, I get it. Takes
this is my third YouTube.
Well, and here's the other thing: is it takes time to collect all this bullshit and money. Trust me, I have lights. Where
I was looking at lights before I discovered these. The light I was looking at was $700.
Yeah, and you're like,
and it was literally one from the ceiling. It was just one of those long, like inside that little casing. I don't know what I do remember what it's called, like diffuser kind of thing that just like lit the room evenly. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, where like it's in the fucking shot.
And here's the thing: is the reason studios are so bright is because they're gonna go back and turn it all down later. You overlight stuff on purpose. So like for us, not that the cameras would see this, but this one would. Like I have really good lighting here, but I'm split lit, which means it starts to feather off. So that's why if you ever see like behind the scenes on 60-minute interview or whatever,
lights everywhere.
They don't want underbag shadow. That's what this fill light's for, is because it lights up here and it just kind of illuminates the
raccoon look.
Yeah. So this is like a fill, so it's only turned to like halfway power. This is your key light, so that one's turned. Then you have one behind, because the thing is your hair on a dark background, dark on dark, there's no separation. So that's what hair lights are for. You literally have a light here, and all it does is it lights up the back of your head so that you have some sort of an outline about you.
So then you just look like this giant bright thing, and then they go into editing and just add shadows. It all down.
Yeah. No, they just literally turn down the exposure of the scene.
And that makes you look more normal.
Yeah, so like when I'm shooting outside and you're like, we should literally be recording.
Oh, I'm putting this up. We've already started.
Oh, we have?
Oh, Adam, welcome to the studio corner. Thanks for coming on. Make sure you keep the mic close to your face at all times and don't take any bathroom breaks. Please continue.
Oh my god.
Oh, you're all red now. This is great. No, please don't stop. This is great. This is a lot of
anyways.
This is a lot of what I was going to ask you, so please just continue.
Wow. All right, on that. Here, I thought we were spitballing, but okay. So like when I'm out shooting photos, why do your eyes are the best camera on the planet. I forget what it is, but your eyes can see many different stops of light simultaneously. Versus like, have you, when you're taking a selfie with your camera and you point it and you're like, God, that looks like crap.
Selfie stick, baby.
Yeah.
This is the game changer.
Game changer. looks like a shotgun mic.
Ready?
Oh, it's one of those thingies.
Bluetooth, click, click, click. We'll be using this afterwards.
It sort of looks like a police baton used.
It looks like a pencil mic.
Or that. Well, right there, it looks like an overhead for your symbols.
Oh yeah, the really big one.
But what I was gonna say is, so when you're you notice that your phone, you point it towards the sun. So like a lot of people like to backlight themselves, so they'll put the sun behind them, but then their face goes black. And that's because the camera sees all this light pouring into the sensor, and it just dumbs down. It just turns everything way down.
Yeah.
So what happens is you don't have any light on your face. It's all behind you. So then you go pitch black, or vice versa. So what you do, I always tell people, is you point yourself into the sun, which because people usually do it when they're trying to get like a sunset photo. I get it. But the problem is, without the proper equipment, you're not going to get the colors you think you're going to get and look good. It's just not going to happen.
No matter how good the iPhone camera is.
Yeah, like that photo I sent you, I took that with an iPhone with 6 iPhones lighting it. It was me and a bunch of my photographer friends at WPPI.
That's the most photography thing I've ever heard. A bunch of photographer friends. Oh, let's get a shot with the iPhone.
We did
6 of you take out a light.
Yeah.
One of you take the picture. So
we had two hair lights. We had 2 right next to each other because you would think, why would you do that? Double the power.
Yeah.
So that's where that spot, that key light hits me right in the face. That's 2 phones literally going like this. Then we have one just off to the side, kind of feathering the shadow side. 2 behind me so that I'm outlit by. And then what happens is, because we're spilling all this light and all that like lit up light behind me from the casino into the sensor, the entire scene comes down. So now the part that looks overly bright right here, we kind of bring that back down into the shadow so it feels all moody, but I still have plenty of light with that key light. We've separated my head from the background by shining light on it, so the hair light, minus the hair. And then, I had one fill light like this, because if you dumb down everything too much, now I would have really dark circles. So what you do is you pop one light like this, and it looks silly because you're just like, I don't see there's no dimension going on in this, but what it is there. It's just you don't really start to see it till all of a sudden you stop down that light. That's what it's called. So anyways, back to the phone bit. That's why you have to take flashes out with you when you're wanting to shoot a sunset. You have to hit your subject with a pop of light, so now they're bright and the background's bright. So that way,
like, you dumb down all the light that's already there.
Well, actually, you add more.
You match it. You match the light.
That way, when you bring it all down, all of a sudden the sky comes back and it's like super vivid colors, but your subject didn't go pitch black because I added light on them. I had to match the intensity of this so that when I bring it all down to bring that sky and the clouds and all the colors back, I still have plenty of light on them.
So like in a situation like this then, where there's not a light, that's basically a dark corner, you got one little like...
Yeah, you have your one overhead.
And this light sucks. Like, right. So with the lights just shooting onto it, would it be better to have them lower and right on our faces then?
Well, it depends. Well, that all kind of depends on how much post you're willing to do. But
I'm literally what my post production is right now.
Right now,
this is I'm just like turn off the cameras.
What is this YouTube you speaking? No, I actually probably would bring them a little closer because the other thing what that's going to do is that's going to light up your blue background a little more too. So now that brings that up. It'll make this sign a little bit brighter. I don't know how bright it's coming out on the web on the episodes yet, but you don't want to overexpose it. Like, you wouldn't want so much light that you start blowing highlights. And what that means is, like, when I'm out shooting a scene, if I add too much light to whatever, okay, so like let's say the sun is facing my subject, and if it's a certain part of the day where it's extra bright, depending on your camera settings, if you blow the highlights, you lose that detail. That's why a rule of thumb, everyone's got their own opinions, so I don't want a bunch of people writing you about what this guy does or doesn't know. But what I was always taught, I'll take them on. What I was always taught was you want to underexpose your photos a little bit. So what it is you add a bunch of light, and then you stop down the camera. So you actually want it to read a little bit on the darker side, because you can always bring back shadow or details here in the shadow. But once a highlight has gone pure white, like just off the charts, there's no more detail there. You can't bring that back. You can't recover that. So,
okay.
it's almost like it's better to, again, there's more to this concept than just it's better to shoot darker than brighter. But what I'm saying is when everything's properly lit and you have enough light to do whatever you want, it's better to actually underexpose your shot slightly, because you can always bring the details back in the shadow. You can always add a little bit. But once a highlight is like pure white, it's just gone forever. Like there's
So
nothing.
it's better to highlight things after you've done the shot.
Well, what I mean is you want the detail. Yeah, and then for lack of a better term, you could always add more light to that particular area later.
Damn, that's some serious editing. So
Well, I mean, some people, some of those magazine people, they spend 3 and 4 hours on one image, just one image alone, fixing every minute detail. Then, if they're not doing their own, like, like color balancing and color corrections and stuff like that, sometimes then, you got some person that's just doing all the fixing of the image, then you got some person that's doing all the color correcting, but usually it's one person. But it depends on how big the production is. Like, I do my own things, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can. I tell people all the time, the rabbit hole of a good photo and how to make it and do the, if you want to make it, you have no idea how far down that rabbit hole goes.
So I like that though. So like if you, as a professional, not like as a personal person, that's a weird thing to say, but not personally.
I like to be not so personal. person.
So first, professionally, what makes a photo matter? Like when you take the photo, or like when you look at a photo as a professional, what are you looking at? Is it just the lighting? Is it the angle? Like what are like 3 things that make a photo significant as a professional? Deep in
That's
thought.
that's a good one.
Coming in hot.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I think the concept and the story have to be the first and foremost. Not that you couldn't just set out with someone and go take a good image and have it be really technically sound and all that stuff, but what is photography? It's it's visual communication. So first and foremost for me, it's what are you trying to communicate? If you don't have that, then it's just a photo, which is not a bad thing, but it's just a photo. And then there's varying degrees of, was it taken technically sound, this, that, and the other, or is it trash or whatever.
Okay.
But early in my career, what saved me is I was the compliment I used to get the most was, Adam, we like your storytelling, and my abilities weren't there technically speaking when I was younger, nor in my career, nor did I have all the equipment, because as we were just talking about, it takes a lot to get all that. Everyone thinks, they always want to lowball the photographer because they think you just have it, and I'm like, you don't know what it took to get here, though. I was like.
Well, studio, like musicians, like the studios are the same thing. Like a lot of these independent studios.
All this stuff, you have no idea what it took to get here.
And this right now is nothing compared to some independent studios
I believe it.
Like that are still saying like I have a long way to go. Like what? I have like 2 different types of vocal mics in reality.
But they'll have a case of them, meaning just depending on the voice or the sound they're going for, and they'll swap it out.
Yeah.
They'll have 2 and 3 different drum sets. One's birch, one's walnut, or.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same concept. It just takes time
to accumulate all that stuff.
Even if you did have the money to like invest in all that stuff, you're gonna keep getting stuff. You could buy everything you think you need.
Well, and
now.
Because definitely there's some trial and error. Which that's the thing is, gosh, I look in my garage and I have like some stuff, photography stuff, where I'm like, what the hell was I thinking when I bought this?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't even use this anymore.
Yeah.
I have 12 reflectors that I don't use, so I only have one now. Where I'm just like,
I have a bag of picks. Probably about 800 different types of picks. I mean, this is a bag that just sit there, and I keep them. And I have little things like that laying around that like I still use the same pick. I've been using the same pick for like 10 years.
You have a bag of picks, but you're gonna search the studio for that one pick. You're like,
but I have a separate box for the picks I actually use.
Where's my pick?
Yeah.
No. Forget that giant trash bag full. Where's my pick at? So.
Well, that's the thing. It's like the other day I was trying to record some drum tracks, and I realized I don't have enough mic cables to record my drum tracks because I'm using them for these mics. I got this other mic for the different YouTube channel. I was like, I need more mic cables, and I'm looking at my equipment, like the random stupid shit I bought over the years. Like, why?
I don't even do that anymore because at one time I forget when it was, but I actually went back and kind of totaled what I had spent on like either the. I don't want to just call it dumb shit, but it's just like stuff where you're like, oh gosh. If I would have known now what I knew then, I would not have bought that. Even if it's only $20, but it's like you don't even want to know if you can just add up whenever it is you're doing a studio or for me photography. You just don't want to. You do not want to add up the the amount of money of things that you're like, I don't even need this.
Yeah, that
So-
hurts. That's a hurtful number.
It is, and that's another thing I was, and photographers still say it today when you're talking to someone that's starting out. It's just like, don't be so worried about the biggest and baddest equipment, because when I first started, I only had, a lot of people, they love to ask me, Adam, I'm looking at this camera, what should I get? Oh gosh, that's such a tricky subject because brands, okay. People, that's like the PC and the Apple question where it's like, oh, well, this does. Oh, for God's sake, shut up. It's a camera.
Yeah.
Sony, Nikon, Canon, whatever. Nikon, depending on what part of the world you're from. Technically, it's Nikon, but
It's all the same thing.
it's relatively all the same. It's how, yes, one shoots maybe a little bit more warmer skin tones just naturally, and one shoots a little more whatever.
but nothing you can't do.
It's nothing that you could not duplicate or correct or fix or whatever. Or when I say fix, I mean like you could just tweak a few settings in camera.
Oh, it's not even a post thing.
No. Yeah, a lot of times it's there's a shirt that I saw the other day that I think is really funny. It says everyone's a photographer, and like that weird top dial where it says like SPAM, blah blah blah, all these things. So M means manual, and it says, so it's just that dial, and it says everyone's a photographer and it's just turned to M, because most people that buy DSLRs, they are scared shitless of shooting in manual, which is the only way I shoot, because it gives you the most control over your shot.
So you decide everything.
Well, everything, basically. White balance, shutter speed, ISO, whatnot. But
camp.
when I say correct it, I mean, you could just, like, let's say a Canon shoots, because if I remember right, I think Canon shoots a little more to the magenta side, whatever. And Nikon kind of shoots a little more to the warm side. So like when I say warm or cool, that usually means like blue or orange. So it kind of shoots a little more to the warmer side, something like that. But the point is, you could literally just tweak a few things in camera, and you could make a Nikon shoot just like a Canon straight out of the box. You'd have to change a couple things, but it's nothing that you couldn't fix in camera and then start shooting, and the pictures would look identical. Back in the day, the big thing was, for a while there, like the reason Canon was such a big, kind of dominated the market for a little bit. Sony was in like dead last because all they made was like pocket cameras. They didn't make DSLRs. Nikon was in second because for a while there, Nikon didn't shoot video.
And that's become like,
now everyone shoots video. Everyone can shoot for freaking 3D 8K. Who cares what it is? Everyone can shoot it.
This is great because when I got the setup, I was going for a GoPro. I wanted a 4K GoPro. First off, I had no fucking clue what 4K actually was. I was just like, it's what everyone says is the best. Right. So, and I have a gift card to Target, and they sell GoPros. I'll get a GoPro. So I bought a GoPro, and I put it for like a wide shot, and it was just fisheye bullshit. When I found out when I found out what 4K was, I was like, it's a YouTube channel. Like, I was like, all right. And then I did 1 minute of research. I was like, oh, lighting will just make it look even better. So I bought these two cameras for a ridiculously good price, and I got these lights for $70. And I'm like, oh, this is much easier than what everyone else was saying. So yeah, I'm glad
that's why I said YouTube.
You're saying this.
YouTube. What's crazy is also the problem with like the world of photography in general. And it's not that it's a problem. It goes. I actually just went to a workshop for a friend of mine. I went out there to support him. Not that he couldn't teach me, because he definitely could, but I wasn't there to be taught. I was there more to support him and be another body and just kind of, whatever. And I won't say any names.
I play dirty bars. I know how it feels to have extra bodies.
You're like, can you just bring people? The tickets are actually, we're on in about 30 minutes. The tickets are now free. Just bring people.
I've never sold the tickets I was supposed to, and I still don't know how I feel about those decisions.
Oh, I actually don't know how I feel about that. So he said something because he shoots out in another state, but he's a very well-known photographer in that state. And he even said, because we sat down after dinner after his conference, and he said, oh, it's crazy because, and he's a little bit older than me. He's in his early 40s. But he was like 20 years ago, it was only me in this particular giant area. Me, I forget the figure. I think he said it was only me and 100 other photographers.
Oh, wow. Damn.
He's all, now it's me and 15,000 other photographers. And that's just because the tech has become cheaper. Information, you don't have to go to photography school anymore. If you had the wherewithal to know where to look or invest smaller amounts of money, because here's the thing, these people put out these workshops and they record the content once, and that's why they sell it so cheap. Is because if they appeal to the masses, meaning you're not teaching just a classroom of 40 where you have to charge them a ton. You can charge 10,000 people $20 just to view this class.
Yeah.
So what it is the information on how, where, when, why, all that good stuff has become a little bit cheaper. The tech has definitely become cheaper. I mean, people can buy cameras today that, gosh, my first camera, like, I probably paid twice as much as people pay today, and they have 5 times the power I had. So, meaning just sensor, you know, how many, you know, I think, gosh, my camera back then was what, 12 megapixels or so, maybe? And that was like for a DSLR. So it sounds like a lot, and it is if it's like a pocket camera. But
so now what's like the
well,
average?
mine is, I forget the exact number. Mine's pushing 40 megapixels. So
It blows it out of the water.
yeah. So like my Nikon shoots, depending on the image, because it kind of depends on the content, meaning lots of black or lots of white or the amount of information. But I've had files in there straight out of camera that are 70, 80 megabyte files just for one image. Whereas like my very first camera, one image would be like, I don't know, maybe like at full size and everything. I feel like maybe it was like 16 megabytes at most. So it's 7 times. It's huge.
It's changed so much. I mean, we're able to do a lot more.
Yep. And this is now the end of scene 1 where I've rabbit trailed and I've lost my way back to my original
point. This is so
point.
Great, though. I love this.
I've lost my way back to my original point, though, which I was talking about.
What makes a photograph matter as a professional?
Right. Well, nope. I done tangented, if that's a word. I just spun right off of that.
No. You
Tangated off.
Never married Tangi.
Yeah, that's the plural. Tangi is plural.
This is pretty valuable information. This is photography class for everyone. I like this. So other than telling a story.
Oh yeah, telling a story. So I would say that's first and foremost because, like I said, it's visual communication. Think about it. Even magazines, they know exactly what they are communicating. If it's like makeup or whatever, why do you think the makeup is so key and done so well and the editing was 4 hours, meaning for every single eyebrow on their face or vein in their eye, everything's perfect to highlight, you know, whatever it is. So same thing with me, even though I'm doing, you know, normally weddings and events, it's like I have to be able to tell a story. So for me,
well, that's what I was going to ask, because like it's different to like set up a shot to take and then to have people just living their lives and experiencing something. It's like capturing a moment. So where does your creativity as a professional come into that? Like, where do you, because they've already done their makeup, they chose their dresses and their suits and the scene. Like, you show up and you have to bring something to the table. What separates
well, that's
you there?
where I have to.
We're digging deep.
Well, it's not that. It's just I don't want to start diving off into topics that. It's not that they're not that they're taboo, but it's just. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people, like I said, a lot of photographers, in my opinion, because I was raised kind of the old way, whatever. I was raised a little more old school with how to expose images and this, that, and the other. But like one thing that's kind of weird for me right now. And even I've taken a few shots like this, but it's definitely not my forte, which is that really light and bright. Everything is super light and bright. You can see it kind of all over the engagement world. And it is a style.
Is it kind of like the portrait setting on iPhones? Is that what you're talking about?
Sort of like that, but even more so. Like you can see it, like people at the beach, and just look in the sky. Is there even a sky?
It's just gone.
Gone, blown out. And that's because they're daylight photographers, and that's okay but I have to shoot daylight at weddings and stuff. But what I will do, and what it is they've cranked up the settings to make the people look good. So, you know, they've turned up the ISO or slowed down the shutter. They're allowing more light into that sensor so that you look illuminated. But if you're pointing your camera into the sun, which is already illuminated, and you're trying to pump in more light to illuminate your subject, what's going to happen to that sky? When you add light to light, it's just going to be like, poof, gone.
So how do you handle that when you're running around taking pictures at a wedding?
Well, that's the thing is, I do it all the I don't, you know, people that light and bright look, and it is I'm not saying that their images aren't pretty. I'm not even saying that there's not a story, but I'm just saying, but it can't only be that. I mean, there has to be other elements to it. And so that ultra light and bright aspect, which is fine, I personally feel like that's going to be a phase. And any photographer out there that wants to say that it's not, I will challenge you to that till the day I die. Because 10 years ago, I was doing things that I don't do anymore, for God's sakes. No one's doing sepia with vignettes anymore, where it's just.
Oh my God, Sepia! I forgot about that. I was when that was famous. I was like 14 and MySpace was out. All right, that's when that was going on. All right.
We're leaving. You said we're leaving ages and all, and there's no discrimination here, so I'm not going to talk about age. But I will agree with that statement.
Yeah, I'm a youngin', as they say, I guess.
So that's a perfect example of there are trends in all industries. Like, think about it. Even when you guys are people mix a certain way.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, why do you think the 80s were called an 80s? Everything was electronic and tuned a certain way or
well,
whatever.
even the type of like compressors and effects they use. Like, there's a guy named I forgot his first name, but it's Maserati, not the car, but there's a guy that edits tracks. He has Maserati, and there's plugins with his actual like compressors and different things like that, and it's very much you can hear the time difference, like what era it's from, as opposed to now.
No, you can usually listen. Now, don't get me wrong, because people would say, Adam, not all electronic sounds were from the 80s. What about Van Halen? Okay, I get it. Different genres. But what I'm saying is, when you hear that very stereotypical, like delayed electronic guitar sound,
yeah,
that clean, but it has that kind of almost like the edge, that delay, you can be like, oh, that's probably late 80s to early 90s. You can just pinpoint what time frame it came from.
It's like the whole Prodigy, Nine Inch Nails, like
exactly.
that whole scene, which Nine Inch Nails tattooed on my damn arm. I love that. I mean, I love Prodigy too, but yeah, you hear that, you're like, that wouldn't be done today.
No, it's just not the thing.
But it withstood the test of time. But that's music we're talking about,
right? So even though music, photo, everything, is always going to have an ebb and flow to it. But here's the one thing: traditional. This is where I'm not like a massive student of photography to the point where it's like I went and got a bachelor's in fine art. Nope. I'm actually all self-taught. So
well, it's nice to hear that a self-taught photographer knows his shit.
The biggest thing is usually what comes across is I can show you or I can do it, but for me to try to explain what I want to explain, sometimes I'll get a little caught up there where I'm like, let me show you. So
from this end, it sounds like you know what you talk about.
I know more than some and less than some. So the thing is I shoot what I call like a traditional, like a color palette. I like to have detail in the sky. I like to have colors. Doesn't mean that it has to be like over vivid or over saturated. I'm not like pumping extra color into the images. I just like my images to have color. There's nothing wrong with that. But that light and bright look, where again, all you have to do is you just type in Instagram, like #weddings. You'll find it. Like I said, first dead giveaway, 90% of the sky is gone.
I was just at a wedding this last weekend. Now I just really want to look at the photos.
Yeah. So again, if that is what you like, that's like that. Well, here, that's like telling someone that liked Tears for Fears or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not how that's what they like. It's fine. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm not here to tell people what they do and don't like. I'm just saying, but that light and bright, if that's all you do and that's all you know how to do, when I was coming up, that just meant you didn't know how to expose the image properly.
Well, it's no different than like any other trade. It's like, look, you can have a preference, but if you're hired for a job, it's like I would never step into the studio musician world and say, hey, I'm a studio guitar player. One, because I can't sight read notes right off the bat if I walk into a place that said no.
No, because they'd be like, read this, and if you can't, they'd be like, there's the door.
And two, it's like I'm not trained enough in certain genres to be able to sit down. In some genres, yeah, I could fucking make a killing. But I've worked with some really great studio players. I mean, Matt Bissonette, he plays bass for Elton John. I met him years ago. He recorded on a few tracks of mine that we worked on. Nicest guy ever. I mean, this guy walked in, sat down and talked to me, had a full and focused conversation while my song that he's never heard, which is full of jazz chords, is playing. And he's just writing on a piece of paper, not even looking at it, the charts to the song. And then in 3 takes, we were out. Like that's I can't do that, so I'm not going to claim that. But it doesn't make me a bad guitar player.
Sure.
But I'm also not going to go out and say, hey, pay me to do this one job. You can pay me to play shows. You can pay me to play on your record or things like that. But to say I strictly do studio work and I can do anything you want, it's like, no. It's almost like if you're going to shoot, they're like, hey, I'm a photographer, but this is how I shoot my shots.
Right.
That might be a little bit better approach.
Well, and again, I'm not knocking the style. It is a definite trend in my opinion. Like in 10 years, I think when everyone looks back and sees all those images, they're going to be like, everything's just ultra white. It looks like a nuclear blast went off. So I think that so the thing is with my kind of more traditional color palettes, like I said, I'm looking at your outside here. It's like, beautiful green bushes, purple flowers. Okay, if I make that ultra bright, now that's lime green bushes with sort of purple flowers with like, they're mostly white with a hint of purple. It's like I've just changed the entire scenery by doing that.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I don't do that is because is that person's tux really that color? I mean, obviously the dress is white. Okay, what about flowers though? You pump a bunch of light into that image, red now becomes pink. Pink now becomes white. You know what I mean? Like, so you're in a way you're sort of changing the color palette that these people put all this money into.
And that's what you were talking about. Like, that's not something you can
yeah,
change.
no. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I shoot traditional, meaning I illuminate things properly so that I'm not changing people's color palettes. I'm not losing the sky. I just want everything to be as true to the eye as what I saw with my own eyes. Because I'm going back to, you have to remember your eyes are like, watch, this room as an example. Like, you can see this blue curtain behind me, and out of your peripheral vision, you can see that white light there, and you can see this white thing, this sign here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see a brown table here. You can see a black mic here. The problem is if you point your camera at this scene, or so imagine you're the camera, like our eyes are adjusting to multiple different shadows and highlights all simultaneously. Not to mention depths of field, which means like right now you're looking at me, my face is sharp, but you can still see this mic. Whereas if this was a camera, this mic would already be blurry if you were sharpened on my face, or vice versa.
Focus.
So meaning like we can see way more than a camera can see. So you point a camera at this scene right here, it's going to see this highlight right here. It's going to start stopping down the light. This is going to go pitch black. You might not even see it. You might see a little bit here, but you won't see anything on this side because it's going to take the brightest objects and start crushing them down on purpose.
Okay.
So the problem is when you're at a wedding or an event, you're a bride or groom or a guest or whatever, we see all these things. We see the sunset happening and it looks awesome. We see that the bride's dress is still white. We see that the groom's wearing light gray, not dark gray. We can see all this visually, and I try to keep that as true as possible. So if I have to illuminate certain things from the front side or from the back side, meaning like if I backlight you, that means the light's behind you. So if I have to add light somewhere to equal something out so that the photos look like it did with my eyeball, that's what I'm going to do.
So, okay, so take that concept. So the idea of adding your creativity to the photo, you put it on manual, which means you're controlling how the photo is going to be taken, right? You want to capture what you see, but you're controlling how it's being taken. So what kind of lighting, I mean, say you have the sun out, you're taking your pictures, you're manually doing it. So what kind of moods go with the lighting? So if it's super light, the sky is like totally white, like you're saying, like that obviously evokes a certain emotion with the photograph.
Sure.
And if you capture what you're talking about, more like balanced colors, and you really want to target what is actually in front of you, how does that change the emotion? Like, what do you think about when you say, like, why am I doing that? What is that? What are they going to look at and feel when they look at this photograph?
Well, that's exactly what I ask myself when I'm taking it. Or, well, here's the thing. As the storyteller, I have to, what am I trying to make them feel?
So do you think you're going to feel closer and more back to that moment if it's more the natural colors? Just
ideally.
Well? Okay.
That's usually what I gravitate towards.
That's got to be much harder to do, though, right? I mean,
because again, I'm not downplaying the people that shoot light and bright. I mean, if that's your bread and butter and that's your style, and I personally just think it's a very easy style to shoot. If everything's, as long as the subjects look nice, it's kind of like we sacrifice the background at all costs. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't like that. So in theory, I think that is
you're capturing more of the moment, is what you're saying,
right?
Like physically more of the moment.
Yeah, I want to see everything. But like I said, I'm not trying to go down because there's a billion things that people could knock me on with my work. And that's why I try not to go into this, and that's why I'll never name names or anything. I just say genres and styles. This is my opinion. Because there's always someone better. Gosh, my buddy I just went and hung out. He can shoot hula hoops around me. I have mentors out there that I look up to that are just seriously make my work look like child's play. So, but out of all that, I'm just saying when you don't know how to bring artificial light into a scene to do what you need it to do to make it look properly exposed.
That's like the job, though. It's a lot of the job, isn't it?
You would think so, but
no, I'm calling that. I'm not a photographer. All you photographers, come my way. I would love to hear what you have to say about this. But if you're a photographer, lighting is like That's pretty much, that's like me knowing how to use both hands. I can't just use the left hand. There's guys that just do like pull off stuff, but come on. Like that's just me. I mean,
there are photographers that only like to shoot in the shade because it's very easy. It's very evenly lit. They're afraid of broad daylight, or they're afraid of finding a way to mimic. The thing is, the one thing about light is it's directional. It's actually really easy to understand. It moves in one way.
Yeah.
If it hits a white wall, it's going to keep going, but it can't, so it goes. It moves one direction, you know what I mean? You don't have to worry. Like, these lights right now aren't going that way to the other side of the room. It's only coming this way.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just feel like for people that only shoot that particular... Like, I feel like you need to like, don't be afraid to open up and, like, hone your craft a little bit. That'd be like you only learning jazz.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's where I said if it's your bread and butter, whatever, that's fine. If you are a paid jazz musician, then totally. But I guarantee you, you take any jazz musician that is, you can't tell me that in their spare time or on other people's albums or something, they're not playing something that's not jazz.
Yeah,
they know their craft.
Well, it's also like as a creative person, as you know, let's take guitar for example. As a guitar player, it's like you fall in love with guitar. You fall in love with playing guitar. Yeah. You can prefer a certain style, but you don't just say I only play this because that's what works. Like, you can make your money doing that, but you're not gonna like never play anything else. You know, I have a assortment of acoustic guitars. I play all kinds of stuff. You should see my fucking metal rig.
I mean, it.
It's insane. You know,
believe it.
Like, I did tracks with some EDM guys one time. You know those electronic dudes. It's like I love to do it. It's more that I love to play guitar, and it's like, you know, like when I pick up a guitar, it's easy to say you bring your creativity because the guitar itself makes sound. You just have to choose which notes and what expresses you yourself. With the camera, it's like now the camera does so much for you, like that super bright light thing, that you can just like angle it just enough, learn just enough to take the picture and make it look good, right? So isn't the whole point of being a photographer to know how to use the camera that's in your hand? Because the technology gets better, it should make certain things easier, right? Like you shouldn't have to worry about people walking by and being blurred out. You know, I think that's something that is really important with the technology, but controlling what the shot is going to look like.
Well, eventually, here's the thing.
Isn't that your job?
Yeah, but eventually the cameras will become so good that I don't want to say anyone can do it, but I'm just saying, think about it. If all you had to do was worry about telling a story and you never had to learn.
Just wait for the right moments. And press click.
And that's fine because the camera will literally do the rest. It was an article I read, some students at MIT. I don't know how. Obviously, this camera will probably never see the light of day. It's one of those things that probably got crushed by the camera companies. It's like hydrogen cars and the gas companies. They'll never let it happen. Yeah. So it's one of those. They made a camera that would not overexpose, meaning I could turn up the camera to make you look as good as I wanted, and the sky will still be rich blue. You don't lose anything. It will not overexpose.
How the fuck they do that?
I stopped reading because I was like, I'm going to vomit. You don't even have to try anymore.
Well, I want to know the science behind that.
I don't know. Well, the thing is the storytellers will still be separated because if you suck at telling a story, then you suck. Like,
well, it's like take the shredders. Like, there's guys that can shred better than anyone, technical geniuses, but they can't write for shit. No one's buying their albums. No one's streaming their stuff, right? That's, except for us guitar nerds.
Because you want to hear it.
Yeah, but then like we listen to 3 songs, like, all right, I'm gonna go put Zeppelin on.
Yeah, well, exactly, because they were storytellers back then. So
interesting. It's kind of it has that. It's very like that artsy side of it, where it's like no matter how technical it gets, you're still gonna have the people that they're talented. They know what they're doing. They're good at it. Damn. Okay, so let's walk through the scenario of a wedding. We go to a wedding, all right? You're taking, because that's what you do. That's what you mainly do, right?
Mostly I do that, yeah.
Is there, well, first off, is there a reason that you only do mainly do weddings?
Fell into it on accident. There's some pros and cons to only doing stuff like that. Like, I shoot on location, so I don't really need like a brick and mortar studio. I'm not a studio photographer. I have plenty of stuff in a small space to shoot studio work. Mm-hmm. So that's that, because I was just at a studio today shooting for a charity, and it was a massive building. And I'm just like, in my brain, I'm just going, I can't imagine what the rent is on this place.
Yeah.
So But the pros are I get to travel a lot. I get to go to a lot of cool destinations, shoot weddings. I don't just do them locally. But as far as how, it was honestly by accident, and then kind of I think everyone, you and everyone at the gym knows that I'm pretty extroverted, so that's an understatement. I shot my friend's wedding after, so this is what I tell my clients, so I'll just tell you. So when me and my wife got married, I was 21. We came from pretty humble families. It's not like we were loaded or anything, so we had to pay for a lot of it ourselves. And I didn't know any better. I wasn't in photography when I got married. I didn't know any better. I was just a normal consumer, like half the people I'm dealing with. So didn't know what to ask. And here's the other thing: is all the information that's available today, like these websites and reviews, that wasn't there. That wasn't there 15 years ago. It really wasn't. Now people can go on sites like The Knot, like Tie the Knot, theknot.com. You can literally find out anything you want to know on a photographer. Back then, it was all still mostly word of mouth. It's not that these sites didn't exist, but they were still in their fairly like infant stages.
Yeah, the internet wasn't what everyone went to.
Not the information database.
Pockets.
Yeah, now it's everywhere. It's literally in the palm of our hands.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of signpost it. Go short route. I mean, we ended up going with a photographer, and apparently had many years under the belt, but it was a studio. Well, here's the thing: weddings are not a studio.
Yeah.
Weddings, in fact, are the only type of photography, in my opinion, unless you're shooting like straight up, you're in the trenches shooting like a war, like photojournalism style for Time magazine or something. That's chaos. You know what I mean? Like you're dodging rounds and ducking out grenades. But weddings are chaos. They're controlled chaos, but they're chaos. Meaning when it's a studio and it's a family of 4 and perfect lighting and you're the boss and you can shoot for 2 hours if you want, you can get what you want. But weddings, where I'm going to name off things that have all happened. The bride's dress literally ripped down her rib cage, and we had to wait 40 minutes to find a seamstress that could sew her into her dress. Mom is 47 minutes late to portraits. Like all these things, it's like an artist. That'd be like, go make a song right now, but you actually have 3.5 minutes, and go.
Yeah.
You might be able to scrape something together. It'll be like a little jingle on the piano and a power chord, and then you smash your guitar over the table, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
I guess. I like the little end part there.
Yeah. I don't know why you have to destroy a guitar, but in my brain you did. Just for the emphasis. So.
Okay.
But there are times where I don't get to be the artist I want.
Yeah.
I really don't, and that's because the photography is a big part of the day, but I don't get to dictate the day. Now, there are some photographers that will impose their will and stuff like that, and that's where you start reaching a lot of like conflict and clashing, and
which you don't need anymore on a freaking wedding.
Holy you don't. I mean, you can ask it. Nobody has to search very far to find some friend, family member, or somebody that didn't enjoy one or two or even more aspects of their wedding for a bunch of reasons. Photography is one of them. Either they were pushy, either they shot the whole day, so I feel like I wasn't even at my party or got to see my friends because they turned it into a production. So you might have great images, but you weren't even there. So they better be really good. So things like that.
A lot.
Well, I think
it's like where'd the bride and groom go? Oh, they're taking.
Yeah,
photos.
It's like watch. We're all sitting. Salads have hit the table. Salads have hit the table, and food's getting ready, and the bride and groom still aren't here yet.
It's okay. The wedding I was at, the bride and groom left early, like an hour early before the wedding ended, to go to In-N-Out and take some shots.
That's sick. See, I like that kind of stuff.
I thought that was pretty cool, but beforehand it was really cool. They were there for the speeches, but like there was this giant mountain. We were in Petaluma, right outside Sonoma, and it was fucking, talk about a fairy tale wedding, man. Just two people that came from very healthy, good families with no divorces, just totally
wholesome.
Just wholesome. Everything was so
wholesome.
Good. It was really nice for me to see. I was like, wow, this is possible. Anyway, beautiful fairy tale wedding. But
you're like, this is real?
Yeah,
it's not TV.
Like, people do this?
Yeah, it's not TV.
But they were up on a mountain taking pictures a lot of the time, and not a lot of people got to mingle with them. And I was like, man, if I got married, I'd want to be talking to everybody, yelling at the microphone. It's my day to do that.
And on that, I mean, that's why I coach my clients, even before they're my clients. I say, unless you come from truly an infinite amount of money, and even they have bad days sometimes. Even when your wedding is $1 million, it can still be extremely stressful.
Yeah.
And usually that comes with a certain type of clientele where they're not happy anyways, and blah blah blah. I won't even go down that road. But I'm just saying is, I always tell people, pick your top 3 things that you have to have.
I like that.
Within reason. I'm not saying just let anything else happen to the rest of it, but I'm saying within reason, just let the rest of the cards fall where they may, because you don't have a $500,000 budget. So if your top 3 things are, I want really good food, really good music, and really good photos, pick those. Flowers are flowers. Guess what? They'll be dead by midnight anyways.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. Cake, great. Most of it gets chopped up and handed out, and you can just see cake literally laying all over the place. I don't even eat cake.
You don't eat cake?
Not really. There's only one cake I like.
What cake do you like?
Nothing bundt cake.
Oh, man. Oh!
I will eat an entire cake of that.
Dude, they had nothing but cake at the wedding.
Yeah,
but
and
they
you'll
were
eat the
cupcake
whole thing.
forms.
Yeah, and you'll eat all of them. So their
Having
frosting
above it.
is magical.
See, I don't like the cream cheese frosting thingy.
See, I gotta go now.
You gotta go.
This is
I'm
where
the
this is
only
over.
person.
This is where this is over. I'm just gonna dump that on there and kill this interview.
It's over.
No,
Anyway,
but their
please-
cakes are really
Yeah.
wonderful. So, but stuff like that where I'm like, you know, a normal tiered cake, they'll spend sometimes $1,000 or more on that thing, and it's just like, look around you. Well, all I'm trying to say is next time you go to a wedding, honestly, when the reception's going, just look around.
I wish we did this before this fucking wedding, because this wedding really was fairy tale. I mean, it
I
was
believe it.
incredible. But I wish I had talked to you before this. I would have been totally looking out.
Well,
for all this
no,
stuff.
because then you would be, it's like the curtain in Oz. Like I'm pulling the curtain back. So you'd have been looking at all the technical stuff, what's going on or not going on. And you'd be like, Adam said this would happen.
my girlfriend was the maid of honor too, so I was nice and up close.
No, but okay, so the cake thing, honestly, it'll be chopped up and you'll just see a sea of cake because they just start handing it out all the tables. You know, let's say there's 6 people here. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how many pieces are still sitting there. They don't gather that back up and put it in a box and send it home. It goes in the trash. That's literally taking money and just now again, I'm not saying don't have a cake. I'm not saying don't have a flowers. I'm just saying
Invite me to your wedding. I promise I
Pick.
will eat all the pieces of cake.
I will eat all the cake, especially if it's nothing but cake.
Yeah,
Just
I
cupcakes.
will, I will just sit there and finish everything for you.
I'm just gonna find you in the corner in like a
Just-
sugar diabetic coma.
Yeah, my buttons are gonna be all opened
Yeah,
up.
no, just exploded, gone. Like in fact, you'll see one embedded in the stucco over there. And so I always tell my clients, you know, pick 3 things. I didn't do that. I tried to kind of do it all. Like what happens is with weddings, usually most of the money, like for us, what I call normal common folk, you know, the problem is most of our budget usually goes literally just to the venue and the food. And you have to ask yourself, it's like, is that, you know, if you are one of these people that fall under the realm of what I call normal people, is that what you want? I mean, you're literally paying for, I'm not saying don't buy them dinner, but I'm saying they get so consumed with that, like
Yeah.
giant guest lists where I'm a realist, especially when it kind of comes to money and stuff. If I could go back and do it again, my guest list would not be what it was.
How many
at
people
all.
would you have?
Oh gosh, we come from big families,
Oh,
and I'm
shit.
not saying I would start cutting them, but truly, we didn't have that many friends there. But if I could go back and do it again, honestly, it would be destination. I'd take my top, and it's not that I don't want other people to come. It's just what it is going hindsight 2020. I recognize the cards that I was dealt financially.
Yeah.
I would play them a lot smarter.
Yeah.
So instead of spreading it insanely thin, I would concentrate it, take like the top 30 or 40 people. Let's all go on vacation somewhere, you know, all inclusive, somewhere beautiful, get great photos, but we're not destroying the bank, and maybe even come back and just do like a reception party here or
Yeah.
something where you could just
I always like that when people like do the ceremony, like they get married with a small group of people, like, you know, they want there, and then everyone's invited to the reception. Here's a buffet, like, you know, it's always more. Armenians do that a lot. I come from
Yes.
Armenian family, and they have these. A lot of them will do small ceremonies, like 3-hour small ceremonies, so traditional. But I'll tell you what, the fucking receptions, man. There's like 300 people there. There's just Armenian kebabs coming out on the thing, just 1,000 people dancing. I mean, it honestly, the price for that comes out almost less than some of the other weddings I've been to.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, because a lot of weddings, and I'm not saying these catering companies don't deserve it. They're truly. I've had food that I'm just like, wow, this is phenomenal. But I want to say like the average nowadays, it's always moving upwards, and I want to say like the average nowadays is like at least 80 a head, if not 100.
Holy
somewhere in there. That seems to be like the kind of the going rate. So I mean, think about it. If you have, well, for a good meal, I mean, you know, if they're doing salads, it's if there's wait staff, if there's now if it's just the dishes where you go get your own, there's probably like a better price point for that. But again, hindsight 2020. If I could do it again, I would take somewhere between 20 and 40 people, somewhere beautiful. Let's all go on vacation. We're all friends, close friends or family. Have a great time. Do the ceremony. We all stay for a few more days. You guys go home. I fly somewhere else. So,
boom.
I give that advice to my clients all the time. I'm not trying to make them take me somewhere tropical. I'm saying, like, take it from Adam the groom, not Adam the photographer. Like, do yourself a favor.
Well, it's also like if your venue's gonna be something that's important to you, I feel like photography is gonna come with that. Like, hey, if I'm putting so much money into a venue,
well, you would think.
I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand, in my opinion.
Yeah, normally people that have like a really gnarly setup, like visually, usually photography's right there because they want that captured. And I'm back. So my wedding. The long story short was, you know, my wife didn't really. It's tricky. She didn't even really get one photo of her and her dad coming down the aisle, and
Whoa.
the photos, without getting too technical, they were shot in camera. Like, imagine you record something on the highest settings, so it sounds phenomenal, and then you dumb it down later, for whatever reason. So that's, you know, like high res, low res type things. So
Okay.
low resolution means that it works fine for screens. Like even videos, a lot of times, you know, those little like 240 and 360 YouTube videos, yeah, they look fine. Now, you wouldn't blow it up to a 70-inch screen. It's not going to look very good.
Yeah.
So photos, low res looks great on phones and screens and all sorts of things. They just don't look good on paper. So 72 PPI
okay.
or DPI, depending on what, I don't even know who made that difference, but pixels per inch or dots per inch. 72 is for screens. This is 300.
Oh, it's a low res thing.
No, this is high res.
Or whatever low, small thing.
No, but what I'm saying is to go on paper, anything printed, 300 PPI. To give you the same exact look as a 70. So this on your screen will be 72 dots per inch.
Okay.
And it'll look just like this.
So I have like a number of different sizes of that logo.
Right, and for different things. So like here, this is a great example. Have you ever tried to print something off the internet or off like Facebook, and it looks like garbage?
Mm-hmm.
And like people will try to print a photo off Facebook and it looks like watercolors, and you're just like, oh, this is terrible. Yeah, it's low res. They don't do it anymore. But remember when you would upload a photo to Facebook and it would say processing? It was literally dumbing it down to low res to save space. So now,
that's why it says the photo's too big to put or whatever.
Or that's always limitations. So they were actually shot in the camera on low res, which means you can take a high res image here and dumb it down later. You can't take a low res image here and make it high later.
Wow.
There's just not enough information. It's been like compressed and all this other stuff. They were actually shot in low res. We got, no joke, somewhere between 50 and 70 images. That's it for the entire day.
Holy crap, that's taken in like the 3 steps walking down the aisle.
And again, not one of her and her dad coming down the aisle. The real big kick in the balls there was her dad passes like 6 months later of stage 4 liver cancer. So,
Jesus.
It's just one of those things. Like, I learned a pretty hard lesson where it's like, but it's the lesson I learned. Someone that hasn't had something like this probably doesn't feel the same gravity that I do regarding this situation, which is photos are not just photos of me. These are legacies. Like, this is, especially when it comes to something like your wedding images. I mean, we all like to think this is only going to happen once, so they're pretty important. But the one thing is
tattooed on there. So.
Yeah, but the one thing is, you have to remember, Father Time beats us all in the end. Don't take yourself too seriously. No one gets out alive, type thing.
Yeah.
So eventually, the longer time goes on, more and more people that you have in these images will be gone. So I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, even one day you will pass this down to the kids and grandkids. We won't be here anymore, but me. So us three, usually I'm sitting with a couple. Us three won't be here anymore, but the photos will.
Yeah.
these aren't just photos. This is like an heirloom, like a legacy. This is something you're going to pass down.
Yeah.
So why was I telling you about my experience now?
Well, we were going to talk about a wedding scenario, but you were telling me why you shoot weddings.
Oh, so I had a terrible, basically, here. Home plate. I'm coming sliding in hot right now, which is not a great experience with my photos.
This is a lot more fun because usually when I run into you in the gym, we're both like trying to work out, and then we get on the same like tangent, and like 10 minutes go by, and then it's like stressful because we haven't worked out.
We're like
this
those,
is like we're meant
like
to do
those
this
two
now.
gerbils that one is like running circles around the other one, and the other one's just spinning in the middle of the circle. But usually I'm the one pedaling so hard, and you're the one just going, "Let me off. I'm out of here."
Well, because it's always so interesting, but I'm like, I still have to get a pump. Like, let me just work out while I'm listening.
Dude, we're getting a verbal pump going right now.
Well, like, this is the platform that we don't have to worry about that. We can just, like, let loose. This is great.
It's great. I feel pumped right now.
Yeah.
I feel pumped. So anyways, I had that type of experience with my wedding. And so the way it all, why do I shoot? I didn't mean to. But shortly after my wedding, I was in finances, and I picked up, my wife had a camera. Picked it up, started shooting things, and I was posting it back on MySpace and stuff. Literally just like, this is whatever I took. And, or I'd take a picture of, I saw my grandfather with one of his grandkids. It's like I knew that I could see something happening. Being able to like translate it from my brain to my hands to the image and all that stuff was different. That kind of came with time, but I could see the story. I'm like, oh, that's cute moment, whatever.
Yeah.
And I would post things. And so it finally happened where a friend of mine was like, hey, Adam, we know you have that camera. We've seen your images. Do you want to try shooting our wedding? I am fresh off my wedding and my father-in-law passing. I'm like, absolutely not. Nope.
No interest in anything wedding.
No, I'm not doing that. It's like you take out a loan if you have to and hire a professional. Like, wow. I knew you don't play around with that. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We get really close to the wedding, and finally they're just like, Adam, so it kind of seemed like we were joking, but we're not. And we don't have a lot of money, and this is our budget, and it was something silly like $500. And they were like, whatever you give us, we know you tried your hardest. And I'm just like,
you can't lose.
I'm like, oh, damn it. Like they literally just gave me a green light to deliver like a trash can full of images.
And then you were super inspired to do your best now.
And I crash coursed myself, no joke, over the next 2 weeks. I looked up every image and article on maybe like how to, best suit the timeline of the day and execute it. Like I did what I could in the time given. And, but what really happened was I kind of fell in love with going back to the whole extrovert thing. It's no secret that Adam's an extrovert. Being around people on like a really happy day, and no, don't get me wrong, that gets stressful at times, but generally speaking, it's happy. Everyone's having a good time. And even though I've seen a groom knock a groomsman out once, that was awesome.
That's awesome.
So, but normally it's happy. So
I've almost seen that. I was part of that wedding party.
No, I saw one. I don't remember how it actually went down, because here I am shooting people on the dance floor, and people have been drinking at this point. So obviously there probably was alcohol involved, but then some girl or it was a bridesmaid shows up with someone that's like not, so someone shows up that's not invited, this, that, and the other. The bride steps in. Well, then she loses it, tells groomsman. He tells him to get out. He's like, you're not, or tells the bride or grooms. He's like, groom tells him to get out. He's like, you're not invited. Oh, take it easy, man. Everyone's having a good time. He's like, this dude from nowhere is like trying to tell the groom what to think and feel and stuff. And then some words were exchanged. I saw a shove. Couple groomsmen step in. It turns into one of these like, get your hands off me. And then finally the groom just steps back and knocks him out.
Knocked the guy that showed up out, or the groomsman?
Knocked the guy that showed up out.
There you go.
And then the groomsman took him out into the hotel lobby.
Now that's an eventful wedding.
But most of the time they're happy. So what I'm saying is I like to, I get to photograph people on a really important day and a happy day, and I get to meet a bunch of new people, and
it's like the ultimate version of positivity.
Talk everyone's ear off, and
you're very much like me with strangers.
I don't believe in strangers. I just believe in people I haven't met yet.
I love talking. Dude, I was at the fucking wedding table, right? Not only have I not met the bridesmaids.
You're cutting the cake
with them. My girlfriend
is
the fucking maid of honor, right? And she's stressed out beyond belief because she has to give the speech. And the groomsmen literally referred to each other as the bros, okay? And I was talking to all of them. They were all cops. I mean, I was just, no one wanted to talk to me. They're like, who is this guy? I made so many friends outside of that table. It was a great time, but I was just like, I felt bad at one point for trying to talk to people so much. I'm like, they just really don't want to talk to me, but
See,
I can't help it.
but I have the golden key to the city. I'm holding a camera.
Yeah, but yeah, it's true.
Which means no one's gonna say that. So I usually just go around making a bunch of new friends. So, but I mean that's also part of the networking thing because then they see that the awesome images. They remember they had a good time with me, and then next thing you know, someone else is getting married type thing. So, kind of works itself out in the end. So I accidentally fell in love with shooting weddings. So
it sounds very lucrative too regarding photography. Like it's not something that's gonna run out. You know, there's seasons.
Well, the industry is definitely changing. Again, going back to the tech being so cheap, and now there's a billion people.
But the wedding's the one day they're not going to hire some half-ass shit. That's the one day they're going to give it all for.
You would hope so.
I just can't see anyone doing that.
You just don't know enough people.
I guess.
I'm constantly getting undercut and my legs chopped out from under me. But they don't know any better. The couple doesn't know any better. Most of the time the couples are just looking at money, the money side of things. But I'm just like, there's so many. Let me
budget your wedding.
Let me just go into some things right here, where I'm like, things like, do they back up images on site? What couples usually go off of this list that they find on like Wedding Wire. Wedding Wire's top 20 questions asked your photographer. I'm like, that's the crappiest list I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Like, ask them if they back up their images on site or not. Well, I have my memory cards. And that just means you haven't been in the game long enough to have something fail on you like I have. I remember being 2 years into my career here and getting home. Oh, memory card, you shoot, it says full, you swap it out. Now, back then, that long ago, I was probably still shooting on only like 2 and 4 gig cards. But imagine having a card say full, like when you look at the top of your camera. So you're like, oh, and you put it in your card wallet. You get home, put it in the computer, says it's empty.
It's devastating. How do you tell someone
the memory card failed? You have to send it off to get like professionally recovered. Think like when the cops like break in and steal people's things and it's been wiped out and they send it off to forensics and they end up repiecing.
So you can still get.
You can salvage some of it. Like I wouldn't say
tell someone after they just got married that they don't have any photos.
It's one of the not any, but that particular portion. Usually you can salvage some. It's just one of those things where it's like that's one of those freak anomalies where there are. When I say younger photographers, I don't always mean in age. A lot of times I just mean in career.
Yeah.
But I've been to weddings where people didn't want me to shoot because I'm a friend and they wanted me to be there. Maybe they couldn't afford me, but whatever. But I don't mind. But I'll watch, and it's like I didn't see that photographer go. They'll shoot on these like 256 gig cards. They'll shoot the entire wedding on one card. That's all your terrifying. Eggs in one basket. Meaning, terrifying. What happened? Like, think about this. How many times have you had a phone just take a shit on you for no reason? You're like, I didn't drop it. There's no water.
How many times has the system shut down mid-recording because I was running too many tracks? How many times have I pressed save as every 10 fucking minutes with different dates and times on it?
And they're not there.
Yeah.
So, same exact thing. Electronics, meaning memory card, camera, anything. I had a brand new camera. I was replacing one of my camera bodies last year. $4,500, whatever it was after tax and everything. Day one out of the box, didn't work. It's out. Granted, I'm under warranty and I can send it back, but imagine.
Yeah, but still you.
So electronics are prone to failure. It's not if, it's when. It could be day one, it could be day 10,000. But the thing is like, yes, that cheaper photographer. I always tell people just walk away and ask yourself, why are they so affordable? Don't just jump on it because they're affordable. Mm-hmm. Why? Be smart enough to ask that question. Here, so things like this, they're not backing up on site. I'm not saying that's. Most couples probably don't even give a crap, but for me, that's called risk management. I back up on site, which means I have this little hard drive. It has card slots in it. When I'm done with a card, I literally pop it in there. I go shoot. When I come back and that light's green, I know that the data has been duplicated. It doesn't matter if my card gets crushed, stolen, or whatever. I have it in 2 different locations, whereas they don't. Now, does that mean the memory card's going to fail? No, but you are rolling the dice on that.
Yeah.
Could it happen to you? Sure. It's probably like winning the lotto. But what happens if it's your time?
Yeah.
Same thing with the camera. maybe they're cheaper because they don't have all the stuff. Because as we were saying earlier, it takes a
Yeah.
long time to accumulate. That's why I have 3 camera bodies. I'm not saying I have it because if one fails, but I'm saying I shoot with 2, and the third one's there just in case.
You
What
know,
happens when the camera shuts down? What, are they going to shoot the rest of the day on the iPhone because they're cheaper and they only have 3 lenses and 1 camera body?
Yeah.
They don't have anything to fall back on. And that's not a diss on them. That just means they haven't been along far
Well,
enough.
go back to the studio guitar player thing. Like, a studio guitar player shows up with, different types of guitars for different sounds. Like, what the product, like if he walks in, you have to be able to, maybe it's a heavy metal track, maybe it's a jazz track, maybe it's an acoustic Spanish track. Like, you show up with guitars that you can get the widest range of things. If you show up with one guitar, like a Stratocaster that only has a Strat sound, someone's like, oh, no, I want a, Spanish guitar and a metal track after. Like, well, you didn't show up prepared. Like, you should have. It's not my job.
And that's ultimately what it is. So, like I said, a lot of the younger, more affordable, again, a million reasons. Maybe they're not paying their taxes. Who knows? Maybe they're the type that only get paid in cash or whatever. They're just affordable for a bajillion reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to be smart enough to do some research or ask the tough questions on why. Why are they so affordable? Ultimately, here's the thing. It comes down to what style of work do you like, and if you don't like mine, then just go find someone that makes you happy. I don't care.
Make sure they're reliable for what makes you happy.
I don't charge for my consults. I coach my clients or even prospective clients on what to ask. I'll just give them. I give them the straight up truth, and I say, you know who's talking to you right now? This is Adam the groom. These are all the things I wish someone would have told me as a groom, and they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't care. I've literally given them the keys to the city.
Now, this is all on-site stuff. This is not, is that the right word term? All, like, going somewhere and, like, in action.
Location-based.
Location, so outside of studio.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, I do studio stuff, too. But that's usually, like,
it's a
one-on-one.
lot less risk kind of thing.
Yeah, one-on-one. The lighting's perfect, whatever.
You did that to me one time.
Yes.
It's the only time you ever shot me when I was 19 years old, and I was 2 days out from my muscle show.
You were a lot smaller than you are now.
Yeah, I was 50 pounds lighter.
50 pounds.
I was a skinny little shit.
Skinny,
I got a stupid little trophy,
skinny
man.
Shit.
All right, so this is exciting. This is like education for me. But while we're on the topic of people doing things wrong and half-assing things and
Story of my life.
just totally that, I want to talk about Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Instagram, one, is a platform for a lot of great things, but it's photograph-based.
Sure.
A lot of authenticity, a lot of integrity, a lot of this is the real me for like a minute. And then it's fucking, now they have these filters you can put on, which I love looking at. I do it every time. And I don't necessarily use a filter every time, but there's not a time that I don't go on to post and look at what the filter can do. And all these, and then you can press edit and control the brightness and the shadows. You have all this stuff, and you just shot with the iPhone. And then you have the careers built on Instagram. These models that just show their buttholes all day and their little thongs. All these
But what I love is they write the motivational posts where it's like,
oh my God,
nobody's reading your post. Those 10,000 views you have, if you could go back and look at the analytics of it all, I'm like, it's 90% lonely males living in the basement looking at your butt cheeks.
Well,
They're
okay,
not
so-
actually reading.
So
like,
the guys that take those photos,
Yeah.
which I always,
which is
whoever's-
fine. You
well-
mean guys that shoot like female models and stuff?
Yeah, but the amount of those types of photographers that shot up since Instagram came out, and they literally make a living because girls
They want to look like that
literally just want to post more pictures of
themselves.
on Instagram. Now I'm not saying it's bad. It's an industry in itself.
We get so trouble for this for people that.
Well, no, people make a living on this.
It's true.
There's nothing bad.
There's one dude. There's a couple dudes that I even follow on Instagram because now here's the thing: their work is not shoddy at all.
Well,
They're
see,
phenomenal but they literally make a living by traveling around the world to like Thailand and Bali and this, that, and the other, doing workshops where they just bring a couple models with them. People pay to come to this workshop. Photographer not only gets paid for their time, but all their stuff gets paid for and all this other stuff. And it's like, that's literally their living.
So how do you feel about the fact that Instagram, and like, do you think it's because it's the sex factor? It's the sex selling, because these photographers now have careers that are pretty fucking successful. I mean, these guys
Again,
live.
don't get me wrong. They are riding a very particular wave because sex does sell.
Yeah.
Or over sexualizing of the photography, and that does sell. People look, people whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're not good photographers at all.
No, absolutely not. What I'm saying is like, how do you feel as a photographer that they're choosing that route so consistently? Is it just does it change anything for you?
No. It does have a certain growth factor to it, meaning people that shoot that like if you go from shooting landscapes to all of a sudden male or female models, doesn't matter. You know, in their bathing suits on the beach.
Well, the female ones are the ones that get paid because they have these incredible photos, and you go and they have like some Snapchat or private things, and these photographers are taking these naked pictures now, and they have these private accounts. And it's like there's a huge, huge, huge industry for that, you know. And like I
don't want to. To me, this is literally just an opinion, but to
that's
me,
what you're here for. Yeah,
we're like that's like one step off from if you're a female and you're attractive or whatever, like, and you're doing all this stuff. It's literally maybe not the same branch, but at least the same tree as like porn almost, where it's like you just don't want to say that you do that, so you're like, well, I take fine art nudes.
So yeah, well, Instagram models basically that like.
Well, here's the thing, there are people that pose for fine art nudes, but you can tell when it's that style of work.
Yeah.
Why do you think they teach? You know, you see that's actually a certain area of in fine art, like when you're like studying to be you have to the human figure. That's not this. This is not human figure photography. This is I have giant boobs and a spray tan and whatever. And here's the thing: if that's what you want to do and it works for you, I don't care. But I think that it's kind of like it's almost like a cheat, meaning the growth factor is just so gnarly on that side of, you know, you'll notice they get 5,000 likes, whereas photographers that I know that I look up to will get 400 just because it's not that.
Well, and so that's the crazy part of that.
It's the content mainly, but
that's the crazy part of that because the photographers that are photographing them, they're making money. They don't need
100%.
They don't need the likes on their profile. They just need that model to tell their other hot friend.
Yeah.
You know that
Well, they're either selling workshops, meaning they're teaching why I shoot, how I shoot, and maybe they are, or how I edit. They are teaching the technical side. They're probably getting a few kickbacks here and there, depending on how many followers they have.
Yeah.
And depending on how big they are, now, certain models will actually pay them to shoot. So here's the thing: it's like because I know a couple of people that shoot. I wouldn't say they shoot what we were joking around about, but they shoot things. You know, I call them lifestyle portraits, meaning, you know, it almost looks like advertisement, but it's not.
Okay.
So if you want to shoot with someone that has a lot of followers, a lot of times these models, you have to pay them to show up, which is fine. But if you ever supersede a certain amount of popularity or whatever, now they're going to pay you.
So is that what the photographers are trying to get to with all these?
I don't think that's what they're trying to get to. It's just a weird give and a take of it all, where it's just I truly don't.
Someone to shoot, someone to add in their portfolio, and they know it's going to get likes because it's hot chicks.
It could be that, or the photographer still paying someone even bigger, because now, like you said, they're going to tell everyone they know, or this person has. Like here, we'll jump off that subject for a minute because it was kind of jokingly. We'll go to fitness because even fitness female models get a lot of likes because they're in gnarly good shape.
Yeah.
I know one of the guys that shoots Paige Hathaway. But what's gnarly is she'll get a bajillion likes, and she'll even tag him. Apparently she's super nice. And she does it all the right way. Because there are certain models out there, they will never give you credit, and you're just like, serious? Like,
yeah.
What? You couldn't at least just say I took this photo or whatever?
Yeah.
But apparently she does it all on the up and up, right? But it's gnarly just to see the difference. He'll post the same exact photo. He took it, this, that, and the other, tag her, and he'll get maybe like 1,000 likes. She'll post a photo, still tag him, meaning it's all copacetic. Everyone's doing the things they're supposed to be doing. But for whatever reason, they don't give a rip. She'll get like 100, 200,000 likes, and for the same exact image, he'll get 1,000. So,
well, because, I mean, those likes are coming from her fans.
From her fans.
She's got a bigger, fan base and whatnot. But And that's the thing. It's like Instagram is such a. It feels over. I mean, I don't know about the photography world.
It's
like to me,
super.
when I see when I see the behind the scenes of these Instagram models, like these not even Instagram models is such a tough term because like it's just a girl that thought.
That's like saying IG. Like I'm Instagram famous, where I'm like, you're not actually famous though.
Well, it's like you are, but it's also it's like taking a band that plays and tours stadiums, and then taking like a guy that sits in his bedroom and plays songs on his couch and has a ton of followers, and it's like they're both famous, they both do it, but it's two very different jobs.
It's
like
two different types of famous.
Yeah, it's a very very different world. But I feel like and once again, I'm not educated on the photograph world and the photographers themselves. When I see these photographers like on site with like these hot girls in these mansions and this and that, it's like you're doing that all day, and you got like less than like 1,000 followers, which is not a big deal to me. I don't care. But it's like, why don't you go for something else that can make your photography career bigger? Why are so many choosing that one?
Maybe
do they just want to be around hot girls?
Something nice to look at. I don't know. You mean like it's almost like why not devote that power to being like you shoot high fashion or you shoot.
I mean, how easy would it be for a guy to go buy a really fancy camera like you're talking about that does this work for
all
you
the time.
And says, "Hey, I'm a photographer. Get a bunch of hot girls at my house, and I'll take a bunch of photos."
All the time.
And so it's like that. That feels kind of
Instagram. No, I don't. It's weird. I don't. I'm like agree. Strongly agree. Neither. Disagree. Strong. I'm like right in the middle. Am I for it or against it? It has its uses. It's a platform to share, but it truly has done, in my opinion, a small amount of almost like damage to the industry because people just mimic what they see. A lot, I should say, more are mimicking than more are creating. Does that make sense? So
there's not a lot of original creativity.
Well, and here's another thing. It's like in this day and age, it's hard to come up with a brand new idea.
Well, so for Instagram, I think for me, what I see is two different sides of it. There's the Instagrams that document what someone does.
Sure, that's all fine.
And I love that. And then there's the Instagram that someone, like you are talking about mimicking, like what someone else. It's just a bunch of pictures for Instagram.
Yeah.
Like what is like if Instagram, Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm sure you've heard of him or whatever. He said one of my favorite things that he ever said was like, if Instagram and Facebook went down tomorrow and Snapchat all went down tomorrow, what would you have? What content would you actually have? And like you apply that to all these like different profiles. It's like, yeah, the people that document, they have content. They're documenting what they're doing.
Yeah, of course. Whereas, they're literally documenting exactly.
And so for me, it's that, and like I said, more power to them. Some of them make great livings. They get to travel the world. I mean, it's really a great. When you break it down, a lot of it is a great job. It's incredible. But as a photographer, I guess what I'm asking is like, do you feel kind of like they're really pulling from the art or the craft by just getting a nice camera and taking pictures of models and that being like the front of photography right now?
Well, it is what it is.
Because
those people, like even people that haven't been shooting as long as I have, and that doesn't mean anything. Like anytime I say that, I don't mean anything like to my own.
Yeah.
There will always be someone better than myself, so I don't ever consider myself like I hear. The only thing I do consider myself is I will always be a perpetual student, which I would love to never stop learning. I don't think there is a finish line. So what I'm saying is I don't think I'm like this some high and mighty photographer. I know how to take a nice photo. I know how to create content and all that stuff. But it is what it is. There are people that have shot for a year that will get 5,000 likes on an image, and I get maybe 200. And it's just because the content, meaning mine's a wedding image, and theirs is a really pretty lady.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do about that. So I think when it comes to me particularly, though,
yeah,
I would say like Instagram and Pinterest have that's where the rise of the professional amateur photographer came from, which is everyone, like the trend, the light and bright. Now everyone does it. They all saw it there. They went out and bought a camera, one lens, mimic.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I think that it's not that
even with set filters now. I mean,
they're
encouraging
things.
You to do.
Well, and presets in Lightroom, meaning I want to edit it this way, just like this famous photographer. Now, it doesn't just turn out that way. If you take a shitty photo, you can't just hit this preset and it's going to be nice. It's not like auto-tune.
Well, auto-tune doesn't make it
I'm
any
just
nicer
kidding.
anyway.
I'm just
Auto-tune
joking.
makes it just as shitty.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is it just the information, age that we have been in for some time and are still in, it's taken away from my industry because it's giving people more. They think they can do it. They either don't have I've had people go, "Oh, Adam, you get paid to party." And I'm like, that's hardly the case, and there's a lot of responsibility that goes with yes, I make it look easy, but I've been doing it for a while. So in theory, yeah, you're like, Adam's having a great time. Yeah, that's because my brain.
You can enjoy what you love because
Right.
you trained your whole
Right.
life to do it,
Right.
or a long time to do it.
That'd be like saying someone that's playing a massive show at Staples, but they look like they're having a great time, whereas most of us would be petrified. Yeah, but that's because they've
They
put in
love
the
what they do.
time. They love what they do. They're professional, whatever. They've done it a million times. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying that it's creating a bunch of amateurs. I'm just saying it's sharing information. People are either just taking enough to start a business but not really follow through with it, whatever it may be. That's where this massive influx of photography. So in light of that, yeah, and that's where the cutting of the legs comes from, meaning there's such a massive market for photographers now. It's almost like, how do you get a photographer off your doorstep? Paying for the pizza. So they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And so everyone apparently can do my job, whatever. Great. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't care. I just keep on trucking and do what I do. But there are a lot of them out there now, and yep, they'll charge a fraction of what I charge, and the industry is getting tougher, and I do kind of correlate that back to the internet. So so to speak.
I think like most other industries, it's going to become so oversaturated with its simplicity and
It's the photography market is very heavily saturated.
Well, think
right
about
now.
even like take music right now. Like, why is the idea of a recorded song, it went from CD, record sales to streaming to how am I getting paid to shit? We're not getting paid unless we go play live shows. Not even merchandise is that big anymore. I mean, it's big, but it's not even that big anymore.
Not like it used to be. Not like when you would show up to a massive concert and
But
buy like a
everyone
Van
said-
Halen T-shirt.
What's the thing? Everyone said the music industry's dead. The music industry. Like, no,
It's just evolving.
super oversaturated because everybody in their family member can post on Spotify for $10
True.
one song. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to put out so much shit and a lot of good stuff that eventually
There are truly some good ones that pop through
eventually
every now
what's
and
going to happen is people that are used to listening to crap are going to start thinking it's crap. Are going to start, people are going to start having stronger opinions on everything.
Well,
And so
hopefully,
the good
because
stuff-
a lot of music, and I won't even say a genre because I listen to a lot of different genres. I listen to like older. There are a few great writers because that's the thing. Where did music come from? Someone wrote that. So you have to be a writer. I mean, you don't have to be. Obviously, there are whatever yada yada yada. There are people that write your music for you. Whatever. I'm not even going down that road. I'm just saying the old days when bands wrote a song, like a story,
Well,
and
see,
then
that's
they played
the thing.
it.
People
Now
want
it's
that.
just a fancy hook.
Well, see, that's what we've gotten so used to this fancy hook, like the easy photographers. Right now. We get so used to that, but there's not a lot of depth to keep us. So after a while, as the human race, we take anything that becomes oversaturated. If it's not good enough to stand, we'll eat it alive and we'll look for something good. And that's why the live performance is so big now. That's why it's the only thing that's left because people want to see it happen. People want to be a part of what you're saying and doing.
Right.
People want to have the best, and they want to know that it's still out there. And then the next big thing will come, and everyone will do it, and we'll think it's great. Everyone will make the money. Everyone will get shut out. It's just how the cycle of like all these industries regarding like creativity and artwork. And I mean, I look forward. I love Instagram. I fucking love Instagram. I think it is one of the greatest things that's ever happened.
I know. Too
But-
bad we didn't think of it.
Well, I think it's one of the greatest things because you can document what you're doing. However, there's always the total opposite. The balance will always
caveat.
be there.
Yeah.
We'll always look at easier to look at the negative sides, but the positives, fully believe, totally balance, if not outweigh the negatives.
Well, and there's a million bonuses in my industry, which is obviously there's a small learning curve to advertising, but right now, if you know what you're doing, Facebook and Instagram advertising will
Change your life.
destroy any advertising firm out there.
Yeah.
Anybody.
Well, now there's Facebook advertising firms.
Yep.
You know,
Because they know how to use, they know how to work the algorithms and whatnot. So
I did it for a year and a half.
Yep.
Yeah, it's but I mean, I look forward to the day though that this is gonna sound so weird coming on out. The purity of something like Instagram becomes a forefront again. The idea of
Could
documenting
happen.
what
Could
you
happen.
have.
yeah, because that's what it all came. It wasn't originally created for galleries of fine art. It was meant for like, guess what I'm doing?
Yeah, it was like taking the Facebook status and putting a photo.
Exactly.
Only, you know.
Yep. It was basically just streamlining Facebook straight to your face. Facebook to the face.
Facebook to the face.
So
Trademark.
trademark.
Trademark. All right. Well, before we go, I want to know from your personal experience, if I walked up to you and I said, Adam, I'm going to go out and buy a camera and I want to become a photographer, what advice? If you said a few things to me, what would you tell me?
Oh God.
Oh, goodness. Silence.
One, these might sound stupid, but it's honestly true. Be humble. There's always going to be someone that's going to just kick your ass around the corner. Oh, look at what I posted, and then they'll just destroy you with their technical capabilities or whatever. Like I said, that's why I try not to run my mouth too much